Hi, I'm Michael Josh from Rappler.com, and this is our unboxing and first look at LG's newest smartphone, the G2. LG is the other Korean company, the other South Korean company, of course the other being Samsung, and of course the G2 is most probably their response to the Samsung Galaxy S4. If you recall a few weeks back or a few months back on TechWrap, we reviewed the predecessor to the G2, which was the Optimus G. LG decided to drop the Optimus branding and just call it the G2. So let's take a look at what's inside the box before we take a look at the phone. Here is the phone. It comes in black and white. We have the black model for review today. Also inside the box, let's take a look. You have some standard package, product information and user manual. The headphones is interesting. They call it Quad Beat 2. They're supposed to be premium earphones. So we'll take a look at these earbuds and review what kind of quality that the Quad Beat 2 earphones can provide. Also in the box, you have the standard European type wall USB socket, which is kind of tall if you compare it to most plugs these days. But what I like about it is that the USB plug or the port is on the top of the device, meaning if you plug it in, it's easy to the wires don't get in the way of other plugs if you're using an extension cord. And of course you have the USB cable, which is actually quite long. So it's quite long for a USB cable. Of course, at the one end you have the regular USB port, and on the other end you have the standard micro USB port. So let me set aside everything else in the box now that we've taken a look at what's inside, and let's go straight to the phone. Okay, so this is how the phone looks like when you start it up for the first time. As we mentioned earlier, you can actually knock twice to turn it off, and then you can tap again twice to turn it back on. Let's try that again. Double tap, and then of course you just have to wait a while to turn it back on. So that's how that works. Let's dive into the settings app to take a look at some of the customizations that we can make to the Optimus UI or user interface. The first thing I want to show you is the general tab, and there are a couple of features. It's just like what Samsung has done to the S4 and with TouchWiz. You can really dive in and customize the interface with gestures, for example, to answer incoming calls or fade out ringtones. But one feature that I find interesting is guest mode. Now this is not particularly new, but you can basically, a lot of us have people coming up to us and wanting to take a look at our phones and play around with our phones. What you can do with guest mode is you can actually hide some photos and some files and some apps that you don't want other people to be able to get access to. So all you have to do is turn it on and make sure that you have pattern unlock enabled. So what you do is you set the pattern. So let's do R for Rappler. Let's do that again and confirm that. Okay, now let's turn off the display and then turn it on again. So now if you log on using the R pattern, you basically get a skimmed down version of the user interface, and basically you only get access to the camera, video, and some of the other apps based on what you've set it. Now let's turn it off again, turn it on, and use my main unlock key, which is T for TechWrap, and you get access to all the files and applications that are available on the phone. So let's go back to that and look at guest mode. And here you can actually set which apps you want to appear on guest mode, and you can actually add them here using this menu over here. So that's a pretty nifty way to protect your phone from people or friends who want to play around with your phone, if you have anything to hide, that is. Okay, now just quickly I want to show you about phone and software information. So this phone, the G2, runs off Android version 4.2.2 Jelly Bean. Okay. Now, when you go to the display menu, like I talked about earlier, you can actually customize the front touch buttons because it doesn't have any physical buttons. It has front touch buttons that are built into the display itself. So when you click that, you have the first two options which we had earlier, but you actually have 4 additional options. So if you click this one, for example, you have a button over here to bring down the drop-down notification shade. Of course, you can always just drag it down like you normally would on another Android phone, but hey, an additional button to do that is also great. Then you have another button here which basically allows you to launch their quick memo app, which is, allows you to write on the screen, as you can see. Let me turn that off, and let's just set it back to the default view. You also have the option, if you don't want it to be over black, white on black, you can actually change that around to have it black on white, or with some gradient if you want. But let's just keep it back at black so that it just fades on, or like it's just really part of the display. And the last thing I want to show you is sound. This phone actually comes with a 24-bit sound at 192 kilohertz hi-fi sound, it claims. And what I want to show you are the ringtones. LG has actually partnered with the Vienna Boys Choir, so let's take a look at some of the ringtones available. So if you are into classical music and you're looking for a ringtone that's out of the ordinary, this is a pretty cool touch. Of course, for people like me who just, I just prefer regular ringtones, and this may not really be special, but hey, if you're into the whole ringtone business, then these options from the Vienna Boys Choir are worth looking into. So let's keep that like that for now. And in terms of networks, you basically have the same options here, but I do like the way they've customized the settings panel and the icons that make it easier to take a look at or find what you're looking for, versus other options that would just basically have the text and you just have to read. Now you can just look at the pretty pictures. Now let's take a look at the camera app and the camera of the LG G2. Let me just show you the camera once again. The lens on this camera, just like the iPhone 5, LG is using a sapphire crystal glass lens, which is supposed to be better. It's a 13 megapixel camera, main camera, and in front a 2.1 megapixel front-facing camera. Now let's load the camera app. Startup time is about 2 seconds, which is pretty standard for a smartphone of its class. As you can see, those green things over there, as you can see, they're trying to focus on the Minion over there. It's a multi-point or 9-point autofocus system built in to the camera of the LG G2. The camera has optical image stabilization built in, which is supposed to produce better images in low light, and it comes with 8 times digital zoom. So if you pinch, you can zoom in all the way to 8 times. But as you can see, as you zoom in closer, it really does get a little bit shaky, so you do need to be able to rest on something to create a steady shot. Let's zoom all the way back down to ×1, and that's how it looks. You can also use the phone in this orientation as well. There's several ways to take a shot. If you tap on the screen, that doesn't take the shot by default. It's only to pick what your subject is. There is a button on the screen which you can use to take the shot. Now you actually have the option to use the buttons, and since the only physical button on the device is on the back of the phone. Let me try to get my finger on the back of the phone over here to show you. I can let it focus, and it takes shots using the back button. But it's really difficult. It feels very unnatural because, as you can see, the camera's over here, and this is the nearest. If I use this hand, it would be nearest, but of course then I would be covering the screen that way. So I really would need to use my finger on this side, and I'd really have to stretch all the way to take a photo. Right now it's a little bit a stretch to do that, but the photos turned out pretty good. Now let's take a look at some of the settings or some of the customizations that you can pick. Over here, this button over here turns on and off the flash. That's pretty standard. Then you also have the ability to change to the front-facing camera. And then you can also switch modes. So there are a couple of modes that might interest you. There's panorama mode, VR panorama, which allows you to take 360-degree shots. You have burst shots. Beauty shot is similar to beauty face on other phones. That it's perfect for people who love to take selfies. And you have the dual camera mode. This was a feature that we saw on the LG Optimus G, and it allows you to use both the front-facing camera and the main camera at the same time. So there's me shot with a front-facing camera, and there's our Minion there using the main camera. We can focus on the Minion, and we can take a shot. You can also use that in video mode. So when we're on video mode, you can actually choose dual recording as well. There you go, and you can record video of me and Minion at the same time. Another interesting feature, let me switch that off, let me show you, let me switch back to our camera. There you go. Another interesting mode is the time catch shot, which allows you, if you're taking moving images and you want to take a sequence of them. So those are the different modes available on the LG G2. Then of course, if you tap this settings button, you actually get access to more settings. Now we're only shooting images right now at 10 megapixels, which is 16 by 9. If you want to go all the way up to 13 megapixels, which is the biggest capacity, then you basically get almost a square. Basically, it's a 4 by 3 orientation. But I do like to take photos in 16 by 9 these days, so I'll keep it at 10 megapixels. There are other ways, there are other things you can do. You can also change, the focus setting. There's face tracking. It can detect faces and automatically focus on faces. You can turn geotagging on and off. This is a cool, if you're a stalker, you want to turn the volume key, oh, sorry, not that one, shutter sound over here. You can turn it off so that when you take photos, it doesn't make a sound at all. So if you want to secretly take a picture of your crush, you can, do that without making any noise. I've been testing the Samsung Galaxy Note 3, and it makes such a loud noise, so that basically makes taking shots of in stalking mode impossible. So let's turn that back on to tone 1. And of course, the volume capture key, you can basically use it to capture, but you can also use the physical buttons on the back to zoom in and out. Again, the positioning of those buttons is not optical for that feature to be usable at all. And of course, you can change ISO and white balance as well if you want to do so. Now, I'm going to go back into video mode. You can actually shoot full HD videos using the Optimus G2. And as you can see here, there's an audio zoom function, meaning if I'm taking video of a person who's talking, and if I move away, then it'll automatically zoom so that the audio quality will not change. And you can also turn flash on and off when you're on video mode. And the great thing is that, let me turn that off for a while and show you the modes. There actually is tracking zoom, which basically allows you to use a magnifying glass to enlarge areas of the video. But it also, there you go. When that's turned on, that's pretty cool. But let me turn that off and go back to normal. But one thing I like also is that even if you move in and out on the Minion, it will automatically change the focus depending on the distance from the subject. So these are the basic features on the camera app of the G2. Once we get more time with it, we will be able to publish a full review on TechWrap to tell you about the performance of the LG G2's built-in 13 megapixel camera. Let me end by just going over some of my impressions based on the design of the phone. I like the fact that there are no physical buttons on the front of the device. And, building these buttons onto the display, they're not even capacitive buttons, but they're built onto into the displays. That's a great feature. I love that. I don't quite agree that this is the best place for the volume up and down buttons, as well as the ability to turn the screen on and off. But I do like the ability to be able to tap to turn off the display. Let me turn on the phone. Tap to turn the display on and off. I love that feature, but I would have preferred it if they just kept the volume rocker over here on the side of the phone, because that's where I'm used to having it. One of my complaints about the phone is that you cannot pop off the back case. So you can't change the battery of the phone. You're also stuck with how much memory is built into the phone. It comes in 16 and 32 gigabyte variants, but there is no room for an optional SD or micro SD card, as you can see on its competitor, the Galaxy S4. In terms of the SIM tray, there actually is a SIM tray on the left-hand side of the phone, which you can, I don't know if you can see here. We'll try to zoom in. There's a little hole here to pop out the SIM tray, and it takes micro SIM cards. So that's okay. In terms of just the design, I love the fact that The bezel is pretty small, so it's really flush to the sides of the screen. I love that. It feels like when you take a look at it at the phone, it's like the display. The display is all you see, and that's a great thing. It does feel like a premium phone, but I don't really like the way that the plastic back actually is such a magnet for fingerprints. I've only held this phone for the last 5 minutes, and it's already full of smudges. The same thing also as you can take a look at the front of the screen. I love how the LG branding is subtle, but it's also cool at the same time. The back pattern is great, but I would have preferred a little bit more if you could feel the texture and not just have the texture built in to the design of the back of the phone. Overall, though, it feels like a great phone. LG says that at 5.2 inches, that this is the perfect size. That's really debatable for me, as you can see. How would you test that? You would basically touch here and see if you can reach the far end, which using my hands is not quite possible. It's quite a stretch. I prefer a phone that's 4.7 inches. The S4 is 5 inches. But that really depends on how big your hands are and how long your fingers are. So, depending on those factors, this may be the perfect size for you, or it may not be. The full HD display of the phone is great, and of course, the Snapdragon 800 quad-core processor is really makes this a really snappy phone, and I can imagine performance shouldn't have any hiccups at all. And that was our unboxing and first look at the LTE-enabled Android smartphone from LG, the LG G2. LG's flagship smartphone is available now for 29,990 pesos.